Aris fell to the hard floor, and his body convulsed rapidly. Each joint fought for control, contorting and changing, but his dragon didn't even stand a chance. His jaw locked, keeping him from screaming out his agony. Sweat coated his skin in a thin layer, and he slid on the hardwood floor, bruising his body. He had no idea what was going on, but whatever it was, it needed to stop. The scent of his fear was syrupy and sweet. It made him pray, and he had no way of stopping it. Weakness was not acceptable to his kind. He learned early on that it was kill or be killed. In his world, there was no room for the weak. He strived to change that with those he loved. The 5 of them had built a family, but he knew their instincts could take over at any time. From a distance, he could hear his brothers' calls. They were frantic, but he could do nothing to ease their minds. No, someone else had to lead, if only for a little while. Muscles he didn't even know existed spasmed in a way he'd never thought possible, sending shots of liquid fire through his entire being. Every inch of his body froze, locking in place, and he was unable to move. The tremors stopped, yet bursts of pain soared through his veins. His eyes were forced closed, but he saw something. 2 hand-carved thrones sat on the dais, surrounded by men dressed in sheer festive fabrics. It was a celebration of some sort. No, it wasn't a good day. Never again would the sun rise in her eyes. She looked down, and his honey-colored eyes stared back at her. Strange. Aris knew this body he possessed wasn't his own, but when he tried to pull himself out, he found he couldn't. He was forced to see what was to come. She floated in front of the 2 who sat upon the thrones. They were her leaders, and it was up to them to decide, though she knew the fate of the child in her arms. She bowed before her king, holding the infant tight. She had no hope they hadn't figured out she had lain with another. "You have broken our most sacred law," the king bellowed. He stood in all his glory and looked down upon her. She didn't dare tell the truth. No one would believe her anyway. She would suffer her sins in silence, because no matter what, in the end, it had been her fault. She had flirted with danger, and now she had to pay. "Yes, my king, I do apologize. It was a mistake," she replied. She hoped that admission and saying what he wanted would save her son. He chuckled and gripped her jaw, forcing her eyes to meet his. The crowd gasped. No one was allowed to meet his eyes, especially not someone on trial. "You have lain with a black dragon. We are the golden ones. We are gods. They are nothing. And you created..." His voice was thick with emotion, and spit from his lips sprayed over her face. She didn't dare move. "This is an abomination, and he must be destroyed." He pointed to the silent baby in her arms. This baby would be killed right here and now, unless her plan worked. "No!" She held tight to her son. She closed her eyes and silently recited the spell she had memorized. Aris, the name she had given him after her father disappeared, and she prayed he went to the one who would save him. Aris screamed and shot up from the floor. He blinked and saw 4 sets of eyes staring at him as the pain receded from his body, but not from his heart. What the hell was he seeing? He knew what he saw. It was him as a baby and his birth mother. He knew it. And his mother was a golden dragon. He'd heard of them through the years. They were royalty, but apparently, as a halfling, he was different. His heart raced, and his breath came out in pants. The feeling of someone's hand on his shoulder calmed him. He knew without looking who it was. Blaine was the most nurturing. A mother hen, they called him. "What happened?" he asked. His voice was low and comforting. Blaine never raised his voice. When he spoke, everyone listened.